So today we're going to do a quick video about SD card cases. It's not very glamorous, but it's a pretty important part of shooting. It's something I've spent a bunch of time thinking about. So I just want to talk about how I use SD cards and the system that I'm thinking about using, and then which case works for me. So first, let's talk about my setup. I have a GH5, which uses 2 SD cards. I have 4 GoPros. I typically need 1 SD card and then a backup for each one, so that's 8 micro SD cards, and then a DJI drone that takes a micro SD card. So we're looking at kind of 6 to 8 SD cards and 10 to 12 micro SD cards in my setup. And let's just jump right into it. Let's talk about what I think you need in a good SD card case. I'd like it to be slim. I'd like it to be protective. I'd like it to have a solid lock. So in most cases, that means a clasp. I'd like the interior to kind of do a good job of holding the SD cards. I don't want the SD cards coming loose in my bag so that when I open it, they fly everywhere. And then ideally, I'd like to have some sort of organization to be able to tell if the cards are full or empty. I'll most likely end up just using 2 in different colors, and so I'll have empty ones in one and used ones in another. So let's jump into it. Let's start with the first SD card. This is the Pelican case. In terms of the pros, very solid, super solid clasp, good capacity, and you can see as I opened it, all of the cards fell out. So jumping into the cons, the foam in here just doesn't do a great job of holding all of the SD cards. So I don't love that. I don't love that behind each SD card, there's only 1 micro SD card on this side, and then on this side, I think it's like a CF card or something else. So I think inefficient capacity, bulky size, and soft foam are the reasons I don't use this one anymore. Next, we're looking into the generic Amazon one. This one has great capacity, so tons of capacity, 20 SD cards, 20 micro SD cards. It's very thin, it's got a nice color. I love having a red case for my used cards. And it's got really good rubberized internal inserts. These do a good job of holding the cards in place. Outside of that, the magnetic clasp, that's a no-no. If this drops, it just pops open and the cards can fall out, so I don't love that. And then it's also an inefficient use of space inside. I'd love to have kind of 2 micro SD cards inside, and ultimately, you know, I don't need 20 SD cards. So if they did a version that were kind of 8 or 6, this would be super, super small, and if it had a clasp, I think this would be a kind of a perfect setup. This one is really close. So this is the Profesion. It's small, it's flat. It's got average capacity in the setup that it comes with, but it's got removable inserts, which I think are really cool. And so these only fit SD cards, but these fit SD cards and they fit 2 micro SD cards per slot. And so if I pulled these out of the small ones and moved them over to the big one, I could end up having a really, really good micro SD card capacity. And it's got this nice rubber grippy material. So that would be pretty close, but this one has a fatal flaw. This one, if you close it and clasp it and you just push, the clasp opens on its own. So it's a really flimsy clasp. If you just close it and just a little pinch and the clasp opens on its own. So that's a deal breaker for me, but very, very close with the Profesion, and those were cheap. I think this is also a similar brand, Profesion, similar setup, somewhat thin, you know, and right out of the gates, the clasp actually just broke on that one. So the clasp is very kind of flimsy, it's plastic, so I think that'll break pretty easily. The grip in here, it's not really rubber, it's plastic. And so I don't think it's gonna hold the SD cards well. Similar problem, it has single micro SD slots behind the SD cards. I'd really wanna see double. So with the bad clasp and the bad inserts, I ruled this one out. The SDcardholder.com is an interesting option. It's different from all of these other ones. It's got a 4 SD card capacity here, and then it's got a single SD card and 8 micro SD card capacity. I've thought about gluing these together, and then this makes like a really portable, high capacity carrier. The little clips on here, they hold the SD cards in here well. I've never had anything fall out, but obviously the downside is that they're unprotected. I'll throw one of these in my bag as kind of like a super lightweight emergency backup storage. These are interesting. I tried these out. These are individual cases per SD card, and so there's actually 12 slots. It folds, it's pretty compact. You can kind of pull it open, and then each one opens up. But ultimately it doesn't hold them in place. If you use it for micro SD cards, they just rattle around inside. So I rolled this one out too. Cool, now we're getting pretty close to something usable. This is a JJC. It looks like it's one of the most popular ones on Amazon. It's thin, which is great. It's got a really strong clasp, which is great. It's got good capacity, so 12 SD cards and then 24 micro SD cards, so that's really good. So kind of everything that I want. In terms of the downsides, it's this soft foam again. It's not the rubber, so it's not as grippy as I would like. And then the other problem I notice is this kind of gasket. I don't know if I got a faulty one. I don't know if I need to glue this down. I may order another one and just see if it sticks, but I don't love that in terms of the quality. This is probably the closest to perfect if I can get that gasket to stay down. And so I would just get 2 of these, maybe put some red tape on one of them to make sure that I can tell them apart. Another close contender is the Hansky. This was pretty popular on Amazon too. It's very solid. It's a pretty solid clasp. It's honestly not as solid as this one. Capacity is only okay, so 8 and 8. And then it's got this, it's a little bit more plastic than rubber, so it doesn't stick as much as I would like. And then the real deal breaker is this only fits 8, and this one fits 12. And if you line them up, you know, it's barely bigger. And so this is just a more efficient use of space. So yeah, this is the one I'm gonna be using for now. I'll figure out how to glue the gasket down. I'll give an update on how it's going once I've put some more hours in using these things. But yeah, this is the system. These are all the SD cards that I tried out. Honestly, it's a little bit crazy that with so many options on the market, there's just not one that does what I need it to do. Let me know if you're having the same problems. If this was helpful, give me a thumbs up. If you found something I didn't find, throw it down in the comments below, and thanks for watching.